everyone, in this video I wanted to show you a few different methods of how I achieve a crocodile print. So there's a couple of different methods here and I'm going to go straight in and show you how I've created this first one here. So what you would want to do is find two colours that work nicely with each other. So I've actually got a different base colour underneath here and a different colour here because obviously that's exposed. So the two colours I've chosen for this particular design are Bellini, which is underneath the black. And the reason I've chosen this one is because it's a nice, rich, thick, dense, sparkly shade, which is what you want. You don't really want like a watery colour underneath that. It needs to be quite a dense colour. And then for this here, just as a nice contrast, I thought those two colours worked really nicely with each other. Let's see. Actually a really stunning colour that is. And that one's called Soiree Strut. And then I've used the black over the top. So I'm going to show you how to create this effect, but I'm going in with a different colour just so that you've got something to compare to. So I've gone in with this colour here, which again is from C&D, and it is called She's a Gem. I'm not a huge fan of greens, but I have to say this colour is absolutely stunning. I don't know if this video actually picks it up as well as it actually is in person, but it's a really nice, thick, dense, sparkly green with like really fine silver flexing, which is really nice. So I've applied two base coats of this colour to this nail pop stick. There is still that tacky inhibition layer. So what you would need to do is go in with some IPA. So I've got my disperse on a cotton pad and I'm just going to go over and just remove that inhibition layer. You will get a little bit of transfer on your pad, it's fine. You just want to remove that sticky layer. This is another reason why you need to have quite a nice dense colour. Once you've done that, you would then come in with your darker colour. So I've got Blackpool, and you put a layer over the top. So come in with this layer of black to cover. This is quite a long nail pop, so it requires quite a bit of varnish to cover it. Make sure you've got no bits of fluff like me on your design. Okay, so once you've got a good coverage, you would then come in with a dotting tool. So choose which side you want to work with. Obviously you've got a thicker side or you've got a slightly finer side, and there are dotting tools that are bigger than that, so it's whatever your preference is. I'm actually going to come in with the larger side of this dotting tool, and what you would do is you would draw some lines coming down. They haven't got to be straight, so you would want to sort of wiggle them slightly. And then have a cotton pad just to wipe your tool on. Make sure there's no fluff on it, and then come back in. I'm going to take that one slightly over to the side. And then you come back in the opposite way. And you'll see what's happening here is I'm removing this black. So you would not cure this layer. You would leave that wet, and then you would come back in and scrape it away with your dotting tool. And again, the squares do not have to be even, because if you were to look at a crocodile's scales, they're not even. It will just add to the design. Okay, so if I bring that up, you'll see where I've taken part of the black uncured gel away. And then what you would do, you would then go back in. So I'm now going to use the thinner side of my dotting tool, and I'm going to come in, and where these squares are, I'm going to carve out uneven squares in the polish. So this is why it's important when you do that layer of black or whatever colour you're choosing as that second layer that you don't cure, not to do it too thick, because if you do, you'll find that as you're working doing this, it will just start to, the polish will move again and it will fill up those lines that you're doing. So you'll just be chasing your own tail trying to carve out these squares. So just bear that in mind when you are doing, you want a big enough layer, a thick enough layer to cover that sort of colour that's underneath, but not too thick that it's just going to keep pulling back in as soon as you've carved out your squares. So it doesn't have to be even, as I say. Quite a quick and easy design to do, but it's really effective. So it can really be good to have as like an accent finger if you want to. So once you're happy with your design, you would then pop that into cure. So that's fully cured now. So what you would then do is apply a little bit of top coat onto your palette, and then with a detailer brush, so this is just a cheap one from eBay, you can obviously use your Licente ones or any other brushes that you've got, and what you do, you want to get a ball on the end of your brush, make sure you've got all your bristles. And then on these squares, you want to be coming in and just placing that top coat in those squares, because that will give it that depth. It will almost make it 3D. This is another technique that you do have to be aware when you're doing it. If you have too big a blob of top coat and you place it on your design, it will start to spread. So there's a fine line between having enough to make the design stand out and too much that the coats just literally blend into the next square. So just be aware of that when you're doing it. You want enough on there to create that depth, but not too much that it's just going to spread and ruin the look of the design. Again, it doesn't take long to do at all. If you have a look at it from a side view, I don't know if you'll be able to see from this angle, you'll see them sort of bumps already that have formed by placing your gel on. So if you sort of turn it to the side, there's a couple here that I want just that little bit more definition on. So I'll just go back in. And you're better off doing that rather than putting too big a blob. You're better off actually applying a smaller amount, and then if you feel like it needs to be a little bit thicker, you can always go back in then. And then when you're happy with that, you would then get that underneath the lamp and cure that for a 60-second cure. So again, that is now cured in the lamp. And what you would need to do, because obviously the black and the green underneath haven't got a top coat on, you would then need to come in with a really, really fine top coat now, quite a thin layer of top coat, so that you're not ruining the raised areas that you've created with your top coat on the squares. And you just want to come in and almost drag that top coat through your design, just so that the rest of the design has got the top coat on it. So just drag through to make sure you've got all your areas covered, but there's not a big pool of it between those squares. And you'll see, hopefully, if I turn this to the side, you'll still see those raised bumps. So you haven't filled those bumps in, you've just top coated the rest of the design. So I'm going to pop that back into the lamp, and that needs another 60-second cure on button 3. And that's the design finished, completely dry. And you can see there, you've still got those bumps, that sort of crocodile skin effect. And that's how I've created this one. So you can do whatever design you want. If you want to do half a design, if you want to do it similar to this one here, where it's sort of halfway down the center, you can do it like a French polish, but I just wanted to show you the full effect. So that's that one. And then I'm going to show you the second method, which is this one here. So it is very similar to the method that I've just done, but if I show you the difference between the two, you'll see that this one has got a shiny top coat and this one is a matte effect behind it and then shiny in the square. So I'm just going to show you how I did that one. So again, you would find a colour that complements another colour. So I've gone in for a lighter colour on the underside and then a darker colour over the top. So I'll show you what I've used for this one. So I always work with CND shellac, so all of my demos will be with shellac and the shellac LED lamp, just for anybody's reference. So I've gone in with Unearthed as my base colour, and then I have used Arrowhead as the darker colour over the top. So I've already prepped a nail pot and I'm going for green this time. So I've gone with Magical Topiary as a base colour. I've done 2 coats of that and then I've gone over to remove that inhibition layer. And then I'm going to come in with a darker green to complement it. And this one is Aura. So same steps as we did in the other one. You're going to apply your layer of colour. These are really easy designs to do, but so effective, and they're really quick and simple. I thought I'd start off with the easier designs for people and then sort of go into more complex designs. Again, make sure you've got enough coverage, but not too much that it will just disperse. I've got a bit of fluff there. Okay, and then come in again with your dotting tool. Exactly the same process. Okay, when you're happy with that design, pop it in the lamp and cure. You would then come in with your matte top coat and you would go over the entire design, and then you would pop that in the lamp to cure. Again, it's a top coat, so you want to be putting that on button 3 for a 60-second cure. So I've cleansed over this design with my disperse, and as you'll see, this is now no longer shiny. You've got that matte effect. And then what I've done is I've mixed a little bit of the green that I'm using with some black here, and I'm just going to mix those 2 colours together. And then I'm going to go over the squares this time. So similar to what I did last time, but this time we're going over with the colour and we're placing that in the squares. So I wanted to show you a couple of different ways of doing this, because you might have a preference to how you do it, or you know, it's good to have a couple of different ideas so that your clients can choose from, or if there's a method that you prefer to do. So if you look at this design in comparison to some of the other ones I've done, I've changed the squares. So some have gone bigger, some have gone smaller. In this particular one, I've gone quite big down the centre, so they're more elongated rather than square. They're more of a sort of rectangle shape as you come higher up. These ones are all uneven, so you can mix it up and do whatever sort of pattern or design that you want, as long as you sort of keep into that sort of crocodile theme. So once you've applied that and you're happy, you would then go in and cure that. So again, that's cured now. If you wanted to, what you could then do is go back in again over those spots with a black to make a little bit more depth, like I've done in this one. I've used the brown in the centre, and then to give it a little bit more depth, I've gone in with black around the edges. Personally, I don't think there's any point in doing it on this design because it's quite dark anyway, and adding any black to that isn't going to make it look any deeper. So I'm going to leave it at that, and then I'm going to come in with my top coat, exactly the same as before, and you're just placing it onto your squares again. Now, because you've already top coated underneath this design with your matte top coat, there is no need to come back in afterwards with another top coat. So literally you're just applying this to your squares, and that will give you again that nice 3D texture, and it will also give you that shiny sort of scale as a contrast to the matte background. If you didn't want to have a matte background, you could come in with a shiny top coat underneath instead of the matte top coat. Again, it's personal choice, but I thought I would do the matte just so that you've got a few ideas to sort of work with and see which one you prefer. It doesn't take long to do this step at all, and the likelihood of you having clients that are coming in with nails this long, well, I don't anyway, because a lot of my ladies tend to be like gel or plexi gel. I don't often have many acrylics in anymore, and if I do, they certainly don't have nails this long. So again, I'm just going to turn this on its side, and you'll see that definition in the bumps, so you've got that 3D effect. And I'm going to pop that back in, and I'm going to cure that on button 3 because it is a top coat. And that's that design finished. So again, completely dry, and then you've got another crocodile print. So the third design I'm going to show you, or the third method I'm going to show you, is this one here. So it's very similar, it's very similar to this one here. The difference is I've come in with a chrome top coat to create, again, a different effect with those crocodile spots. So I have already prepped this nail. Same colour that I've used underneath this one. I've done 2 coats, and then I have removed that inhibition layer. So it does dull that one down slightly because that is kind of a metallic-y one. And then exactly the same process as we've just done, you would then come in with your darker colour. So I'm going to come in with my black pool again. So just so it's a little bit different, I'm going to just do part of this nail. I'm going to do it like that. And then I'm going to come in with my dotting tool again. Exactly the same process. These sort of processes are all pretty much the same, those first few steps. It's the sort of finishing part that changes, or the top coats that you use that change the effects towards the end. So I'm going to come in this way, I think. So I'm going to pop that into the lamp and cure. So that's cured, and what I'm going to do, because I want 2 different effects on these nails, I'm going to come in with my Express 5 top coat on this colour here, and then I'm going to come in with my matte top coat over the black. And then pop that into cure on button 3. So that's cured. I've gone over with my disperse, so you can see one side is matte and one side is shiny. And then what I'm going to do is, for the squares, you are going to need to have a non-white top coat. So I'm going in with Lucente's Layer It. So you would place a small amount on your palette. Now, it's important that it is a tack-free top coat because you are coming in with your chrome powder. So you could either come in with your dotting tool, or you can come in with your brush again. And same process as before, you're filling in these squares to give it that depth, but also that is what your chrome powder is going to stick to. Again, if I turn that onto the side, you will see the 3D effect. Again, if you want to add more, go in and add more, and you'd need to then cure that. Okay, So that's been cured in the lamp. So you'll see if I turn it to the side, it's maintained those sort of 3D scales. And then what you would do, you would come in with your chrome powder. So for this one, I've got, it's rubbed off quite a bit now, but it's called Sinful. And this is the Mirror Shine. So you can use whatever chrome powder you want, whatever chrome colour you want. I'm just going to come in this. And you can either do this one of two ways. You can either, with a glove on, use your finger to rub it in. You can use like a little eyeshadow, or you can use your Lucente T1 and use your attachment to push that product in. I'm just going to use just a quick eyeshadow. So you would come in and rub that over. It's not going to stick to any of the other layers because you haven't used a tack-free coat on that. Come in and shine that up nicely and you'll see that effect. Now you can't leave that like that, otherwise that chrome powder will wear off over time. So what you do need to do is come back in and top coat it again. So you need to be coming back in with your tack-free top coat. So I've still got some here. So you'd come back in and you'd cover these dots that you've just applied the chrome powder to. And what it will do as well is it will just build that 3D effect up some more. When you do this, just try and keep to a similar sort of order, because otherwise if you start top coating sporadically, you'll forget which ones you've done. And if you forget and then you come to sort of wipe over or anything at the end, you'll end up rubbing some of your design off. Or if it was on a client and you haven't top coated over one of those squares, it will wear off, which obviously you don't want because it will ruin the design. Make sure you've covered it all well. And again, if you do want to build any of those up, build them a bit higher with your top coat, and you'd go back in and cure that. Now, if you didn't want to leave that edge as it is, you could come in with diamantes, you could come in with beads like I have on this one, you could come in with striping tape, whatever you like, flexi tape. You could, if you wanted to, use some foil gel down the side of that, or you could just leave it like that. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so that's that design finished. Now, because I want to have something a little bit different, I am just going to add a little bit more to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my flexi tape. So this is just one that I bought off eBay, and you've got your different thicknesses. So I'm going to go for a really, really thin piece of flexi tape. So I think this one here will actually be long enough for that by the time I've wound it around, I think. So I'm going to use this one. So you do have to be careful when you're working with flexi tape because it is really thin. Obviously it does bend, hence the name flexi tape. I just use some tweezers. So what I would do is I would place it on the edge. And as I say, you don't have to use flexi tape. You could use diamantes, you could use your caviar beads, you could just leave it if you wanted to, or you could come in with your foil gel and apply a line and then use some foil to just dab over that line. Your final method, which is your fourth method, which I'm actually going to show you 3 different options again of how you would do this. So I'm going to do one where I'm going to do some sugaring with some glitter, and then I'm going to do one with some acrylic top coat, a little bit like how you would do a cable knit, and another one I'm going to show you with some neons. So I'll start off showing you with this one. So I've again just prepped another stick with 2 shades of my colour, and then I have actually used a top coat over this. So I'm just going to use that colour again. And with your detailer brush, you'll come in and you'll create your squares. So this is freehand, so it is important that you have top coated before you do this, because when you come to put your gel polish over the top, this layer is literally going to have your glitter sprinkled over the top, and then you will cure that in the lamp. There is going to be no top coat over this. So you need to make sure that colour underneath has already had your two colours and your top coat. If you were doing this on a client, you would obviously need to put your base coat before you do your two coats of colour. This is on a pop stick, so I've literally just done the two coats. So you can see as I'm coming down, I'm just making this pattern a little bit smaller and the squares a little bit more sort of irregular. And then what I'm going to do is come in here with a different sort of shape in between those rectangles and squares that you've just created. So I'm happy with that design. So what I would do, I have actually got a tray that I can hold underneath, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to hold it over the top because it's not actually coming into contact with anybody's hands. And then what you would do is you would use, well, you can use whatever. I'm just going to use the underside of this to scoop it. So you would place your tip over this, or again, if it was a client, you would have some that you would pop aside and then put that over the top, and then it would fall into the tray, so you're not then decanting that back into that same pot and using on somebody else. And then you literally just pour that over the top of the nail. I'm just going to go across this side. And you can do this with any glitter. Make sure you've covered all the areas that you've done. I always turn that and then just tap that nail. And then I'm just going to come over this side here. Make sure I've got all the edges of this side. And then back over the centre. Make sure I've got all the bits that I want covered. And then again, just tap. And then what you would do with that is you would pop that in the lamp to cure for 60 seconds. So while that one's in the lamp, I will show you exactly the same method that I've just done there. So again, I've prepped this one here, and just move that off there. I have used, for this one, I have used nude knickers. So similar process, apply your design, but instead of using your glitter, you would come in with your clear acrylic. So I'm just going to do this one and not talk. And then finally, I'm going to come in with this one here. So again, this one's had two coats of white, and for the white, I have used Cream Puff because it's slightly more pigmented than the Studio White. And then I've come in with your top coat and removed that inhibition layer. And so I'm going to now come in with some more Studio White to create the pattern. And then you'd cure that one. So this is the one that's now been cured in the lamp. So with a fluffy brush, you would just come over and just remove any glitter that may be between the spots. And because you've already applied a top coat underneath before you've applied this, those two layers are already dry, and then obviously you've got this. So it's called sugaring, so obviously that's not going to be smooth. If you were to run your finger over that, that's not going to be smooth, but because you've cured that glitter into that wet gel, it creates that design. So there's another little effect that you can do with that. And then this one here, exactly the same as we've done in that one, but I've cured it with clear acrylic powder. So again, you could just dust that off. If you wanted to, if you didn't want a shiny coat underneath that, you could put a matte top coat. So all I've done there is just done different spots so that you can see the effect rather than it being squares. We've changed the shape of that slightly so you've got something to compare to. And then finally, this one here, so we've cured this polish because we need the tacky layer for the neon pigments to stick to. Starting with the blue, you would need your, you could use your P1, but I'm going to just use my glitter one because I find because it's got a point on, I can be a little bit more precise. So you would get a small amount. I tend to take from the lid rather than the pot, because then you've not got so much on your brush, and you sort of pat that into that tacky layer. Obviously try and aim to go a bit deeper at the bottom, so you want more blue burnished into that layer. And then as we're coming up, we want to be feathering that a little bit lighter, because then this is how we create that ombre effect. So we feather that in lightly. If you need to dust some off so it's just loosely on your brush. And you'll see that it's gone from really dark and it's fading out to a little bit lighter. Shut your lid so you don't spill it. And then I'm going to come in with my green. So again, wipe your brush, use some that's already sort of in the lid. And then work into that blue. And again, you're pressing that into that cured gel polish because you're burnishing it into the gel, and then you would feather that green down into the lighter blue so that ombres up nicely. And again, you come in lighter here with your brush. There's nothing left on the brush now, so you're just using what's left. Wipe your brush off, pop some of your yellow on, and then you're coming in with your thicker towards the top. If there's too much on your brush, dab it off, and then you're coming in a little bit lighter into your green. And then that polishes that into that one there. And again, with your fluffy brush, you can come over and just remove any that's sort of in between. Shut your lid so you're not spilling everything. Anything like me, I'm really clumsy. So you've achieved that sort of ombre look. And then what you would do, because again, if you don't top coat this, this will rub off over time. It doesn't matter so much with this one about having the depth, but if you did want to be able to see that depth on those, you could put a top coat on first, cure that, and then come back in a similar sort of way to what I've done before, and you just place it on those areas. But if you want to keep that sort of flat, then you can. So there you have it. That's all of the designs created then using various different methods to create the crocodile skin effect. So they're ranging from matte, chrome, sugaring, neons, all sorts there to give you something to get going with. So many designs that you can create. Have a play around and see what you can come up with. And if you do come up with any creations, do tag @nailsbycharl_eds in any of your creations. I'd love to see them. I hope my videos do help you guys. And if they do, please do like and subscribe to see more. If there are any designs that you'd like to see or would like a demo on, please do comment below. Thanks guys, bye.